Hey there YouTube, welcome back to another Black Powder update, and today we have the final figure, or the final set of figures to complete the second Netherlands division. I'm very happy. I think I finished them in a pretty decent time as well, and obviously because it was a divisional commander, I wanted to try and do something a little bit special on his base. And I think I've come up with something that kind of ticked every box, apart from one particular element that I really wanted to put in, but ended up kind of not really working. So what I'll do is I'll basically we'll go in, I'll give you a closer look at the base, and then I'll introduce you to the various figures on the base and zap out a little bit of history. And then that'll probably be more or less it, really. So hopefully it won't be too long, although obviously blurbing history could theoretically take the time up. So first of all, let's start off with a zoom in and a general sort of overview of what's going on. So as you know, I use 60mm bases for my brigade and divisional commanders. Generally, a brigade commander will be on his own on the base. The exception to that being if it's kind of a sort of a personality, like for instance the Prince of Saxe-Weimar, where I would actually try and add maybe an extra figure or two to the base as well. Although it will generally be a little less flashy than what a division commander would be. So obviously this chap is the division commander, so I tried to do something really special with his base, and I kind of moulded it up to more or less sort of resemble a hill, and we have the two commanders discussing between themselves, and when we actually get to them, I'll actually fill in what they are fictionally talking about. And also we have a corporal of the Mounted Guides Corps, or the Corps of Guides, which are, I suppose you could say, well, more or less they're just the same as a sort of an ADC or whatever, and other sort of dispatch riders, etc. But these guys were unique to the Dutch-Belgian forces, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of a quick sort of rough overview of what these guys are. So, like I say, they're called the Corps of Guides. I'll try and get a sort of a closer look at in on the figure. There we go. So, as you can see, got quite a flashy uniform. These guys were a unit of 56 specially picked officers and men from the from all ranks of the mounted regiments, including horse artillery. All troopers were promoted to corporal. So here we have obviously a someone who was picked and was the rank of a private, and therefore got an instant promotion to corporal. They were formed in 1815, and literally their main job was to carry dispatches for staff officers, and these guys were especially picked for their knowledge of of geography as well. Very, very competent riders, and very good at navigation, and also reading the land. So these guys were basically, the hand-picked elite to do their job, which is obviously taking orders as efficiently as possible across a battlefield. Yeah, I really like this guy. He's basically just standing there holding his horse. The horse is the colour of the horse is a little bit unique. I always, whenever I come across a picture of a horse or a painting of a horse that I find a little bit special, I always try and sort of duplicate that horse. Now this particular horse is based on a drawing in the Dutch book, and it's basically like, it looks as if it's almost a sand-coloured horse, but obviously, I think it's supposed to be like a sort of maybe a sort of a chestnut, halfway between a sort of a bay and a chestnut. Now, they wouldn't really be sand. They couldn't really be sand coloured. I think that's just the way that the sort of the paintings come out. But when I was actually thinking about doing the horse myself, I decided to make it literally a cross between a bay horse and a light chestnut horse, and I think the sort of that idea kind of turned out actually ending up looking quite cool in the end, because the horse is a little bit too dark to be a light chestnut, but also really too light to be what would be classed as a bay. So you have this weird sort of combination of this sort of almost chestnut horse having a black tail and mane of a bay horse. And again, I used the charcoal grey for his socks and his face markings, and I think he came out looking a really nice little horse in the end. And again, it was done using my sort of style of painting, and which I always think is you know, a very decent way of painting a horse, and I think you get really good results from it. And of course, he's, like I say, is basically holding his horse, standing there, waiting to be called into action from the two main characters of the stand, obviously Perpochner and Rebecque. Now let's go and introduce the actual command figures themselves. So let's first of all start by position. So let's start off with Rebecque. Now this chap is full title is a Major General Major General Jean Victor de Constant Rebecque, and he's actually a very interesting chap. I had a quick look at his Wikipedia page before I started doing this, because at one point I was thinking about doing like a sort of almost like a mini biography of this chap. He's quite an interesting guy. He's a Swiss mercenary, more or less. He fought for the British throughout the Peninsula Campaign, and he actually was involved in more or less every battle of the Peninsula that Wellington was involved in, and you can see the medal on his chest there. That is actually the British Peninsula Medal, and it actually has the rarity of actually having 5 clasps. Now, officers that had this medal, when they received their, I think it's the fourth clasp, would actually replace the medal with a gold cross. However, rarely this guy has maintained the medal, but with its 5 clasps. So that's actually quite a rare thing to happen, and it's quite cool that they obviously moulded that onto the figure itself. Now I did actually add a feather plume myself. For some reason, Perry's didn't put that on. I don't really know why. I mean, every picture I've seen of him, his bicorn is more or less the same as a French divisional commander, i.e. it's got the white feathers. Now this is more based on the sort of the general, more or less like, well, the standard issue bicorn that just has the white piping rather than the feathers. Now obviously Perpochner, I believe, would have probably that style of bicorn, although again perhaps he would have had that the French style too, but he actually does have the feather plume. So I just added that just to sort of fit it in and make it sort of in line. Now if you look at the then we'll sort of go across to Perpochner himself. Now this chap is, to give you his full title, Major General Baron Henri Georges Perpochner Seldinlitsky, and as I said, he is the divisional commander for the 2nd. Now the way that I've set this scene up, it's obviously a little bit fictional, because I'm sure in reality they didn't go up on top of a hill to discuss this, but basically just before, obviously before hostilities broke out, the Duke of Wellington sent a order to the I believe it was the Prince of Saxe-Weimar that received the order. Now I'm not sure, I haven't looked it up exactly how many Dutch troops were based at the at Quatre Bras at that particular time, but basically this order basically told him to pull back from Quatre Bras, from the crossroads, and for some reason the Prince of Saxe-Weimar thought that this order was wrong, and he took the matter to his direct superior, who was Perpochner, and he took it to Rebecque, and they basically sat and discussed this order, and decided to countermand it and actually reinforce the position with another brigade, and thus Quatre Bras broke off as we know it. Now, obviously, I can't say that they stood on a hill and discussed it, but that's the kind of way that I sort of modelled it, as if they were, they went to a nearby hill, perhaps overlooked the position, and they're just sort of sitting there discussing whether it's whether they should just follow the Duke's order, or the Duke of Wellington's order, or countermand it and actually reinforce the position. And sort of take it on themselves, yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out overall. I mean, like I say, it's completely fictional, completely fictional idea. It's more on the sort of the flavour of them discussing it, and I suppose that's why Perry's perhaps put Rebecque in with Perpochner because of that. But either way, I suppose, I mean, I think on the actual Perry's site they have them separately based, but I think they look really cool together, and I tried, obviously my plan was to put them both on, and of course we have the Corporal of the Guides, the Corps of Guides, just sitting down at a little bit of a lower elevation, waiting patiently to be given an order to be sent into action. Which probably will be to send the first brigade to reinforce Quatre Bras. But yeah, that's more or less the sort of idea of it. Now, if you have a closer look at the base, you can see that we have the elevation, we have the site slope going downwards. Perpochner is just a little bit higher than Rebecque is a little bit higher than Perpochner. You can see that they're sort of talking. He's got the map. Perpochner's got the map. I basically painted the map. I think I gave it a base coat of Army Painter Mummy Robes, which is kind of like a bone colour. I then use a really fine graphic pen to draw the map on, which worked out really cool actually. And then I gave it a coat of skeletal horde, I think, contrast paint at the end, just to give it that sort of off-colour white that sort of paper was back in those days, especially sort of maps anyway. And I think, like I say, I think overall it turned out quite cool, and it's definitely something different to what I've done before. Even though the idea of sort of mounting some command figures on a sort of raised ground I have sort of attempted before, but yeah, so that is the end of this video. I'm really happy with the way these guys turned out. Obviously you're limited by the amount of space that you get on a 60mm base. Now I can't remember if I mentioned it or not, but I did actually put a water feature into this base, and if you look very carefully along this little route here, going through the shrubberies, there's actually a stream cut in. Now at the sort of the time that I was modelling the base, it seemed like a really good idea. And I thought, you know what, I'm dying to always use water texture and put like little streams and stuff in. Ever since I did that, the command figure from my Brunswick division that was crossing the stream. I really did like that guy. I think it's one of the best bases I've done. And I thought, you know what, it'd be really nice to have like this sort of little stream that just runs. It's kind of, it's sort of running up the side of the hill. It appears out of the ground and then disappears back under the ground again. It's just literally this little tiny stream, maybe a couple of meters long, that's actually open, and the rest of it is more or less underground. I thought it would look really cool, but in the end, it's basically, you can hardly see the thing, so it's kind of a little bit of a wasted effort, especially seeing I had so much trouble trying to get the water effect to actually stay on the base and not just run off all the time. So yeah, that's more or less it. I hope you enjoyed it. Obviously, my next video is going to be hopefully a divisional overview. I think normally I tend not to do divisional overviews for when I'm doing a core, because obviously when you do your core overview at the end, you basically just going over what you've already done. But I think in this case, because the divisions are so big, it's going to be quite a heft of time before I finish the second. And then I've obviously still got work to do before I actually finish the core, because I need to replace all of my 3rd British Infantry Division's commanders too. So that's like another 4 or 5 command figures that I've got to paint up after I've finished everything else. Obviously leaving the Prince of Orange to the very, very end, which I always tend to do. I leave the core commander to do at the very, very end after everything else is done. So yeah, so fingers crossed that I actually managed to get that going. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. So rather strangely, again another week with perhaps I'm not going to sort of guarantee it that it's definitely going to be out towards the end of the week, but I'm going to certainly try to do it by the end of the week. Now, whether I actually try and heft my 2 boxes, my 2 really useful boxes, into the other room and actually do the core overview on my table where I've got my mat set up, or whether I actually just do it on the painting desk here is another a dilemma that I'll need to think about. Either way, I'll have to carry a box in because I have my 1st Brigade in the other room, and I have the 2nd Brigade in here, because obviously as I finish figures, I put them into the box, and I also have a secondary box as well, which I think that box is going to become like the artillery store box, and possibly house a few command figures too, because I found that if you stick the cannons in with the regular troops, you're not left with enough space to actually fit the division, the brigade commander in. Now, obviously, there's also not enough room for the divisional commander either. So I find that having an extra box, which you basically stick all the artillery in, and then you can basically, I think, just about fit. I should be able to fit the 2 divisional commanders and the Prince of Orange into that box as well. So because I think the 3rd Division is made up of 2 brigades of 6 battalions, which I'm hoping will fit in I think they will fit into the box, but it may not have enough room for command figures, which is why I've got the secondary box. Anyway, that's waffling. Video's done. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye bye.